Let's go to Amal now in Canada, watching on YouTube Live. Amal, your question for Jimmy.
Hi, I just want to, first of all, thank you for all the work that you do. It's been really helpful during my journey to Catholicism.
Awesome. Thank you.
I have a problem with kind of just understanding how the God of the Bible is compatible with the created universe in which we are currently present, considering the vastness of the universe, the length of time that it has been in existence compared to the time we have been in existence, the kind of infinitesimal number of other stars and planets orbiting them, and the random destruction of them throughout the universe, the amount of time it took for us to get on the scene of our planet's existence, and the time it took for Christ to come through the 100,000 years of existence of our species.
Okay. Well, I understand the position you're coming from. These are certainly things that have been mulled over by other people. What I can tell you is, I guess I'd proceed along a couple of lines. One of them is, because God is God and not a man, he's different than we are. He is not like us. And therefore, we shouldn't expect God to behave or make the same choices that we would make as human beings. And so, for example, if you take a human-centric point of view, you might say, well, the universe ought to be very young and very small, because humans are what's the important thing. Yeah. But that presupposes a human-centric point of view. God is not human-centric, though. God is infinite, and so he has a much vaster scope than we do. And consequently, it wouldn't be surprising to have an infinite being make a universe of vast size and vast age, because those are also going to reflect aspects of his own vastness. And there's some more to say about this, but we'll do it on the other side of the break.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live, Open Forum. Jimmy Akin, our guest on the line, is Amal in Canada. Canada. And you were addressing his question about the fact that it's kind of a question about the inefficiency of God. That it's hard to accept that he made things so big and he made time so vast.
Yeah, well, partly I think it's explained by the fact that God is not human-centric. And so we're a part of his creation, and we glorify him just by existing, because we show some of the ways that God is great, namely he could create us, but he created other stuff, and that shows other ways that God is great. So partly, I think the answer is God's just not human-centric. He's vaster than that. And by creating a vast cosmos, both vast in space and vast in time, that helps reflect part of the glory of God in creation. I think there's also another couple of factors that are relevant. One of them is humans value efficiency because we have limited resources. I mean, that's the whole reason that we need to care about managing resources, because we've got a limited amount. We have a certain amount of food. We need to make sure it gets to people who eat it before it goes bad. Otherwise, it's wasting food. Your parents, I'm sure, always told you don't waste food.
Yes.
Similarly, we have a limited amount of energy that we can use during the course of the day, personally. I mean, biological, biomechanical energy. So we need to conserve that, because we don't have unlimited vitality, no matter what certain nutrient supplement people would tell you.
Right.
So we have to manage, what are we going to spend our energy on? And this is true across all kinds of different fields. Humans have limited resources that we need to manage wisely. And there's actually a name for that, because these resources have alternative uses, and there's a name for the rational management of limited resources that have alternative uses. The name for that is economics. And that's what economics is. It's the intelligent management of limited resources with alternative uses. And we have to be economic about food and our bodily energy and electricity and water and all kinds of different resources, because they're limited. Here's the thing. God does not have limits. He doesn't have limited resources. He's omnipotent.
Yeah.
And therefore, he does not need to be efficient the way we are because he's not going to run out of stuff. He can always make more stuff.
Right.
And it's just as easy for God to create a whole new universe as it was to create the first one. And so rather than thinking about God interacting with the universe as if it's a kind of machine that he's built to accomplish something efficiently, it's more like thinking about God interacting with the universe as if it's a game that he's interacting with for the joy of interacting with it.
What a great analogy.
Yeah. So he's not trying to like accomplish a limited goal with the universe. He's having joy interacting with his creation. And that's part of why he doesn't need to tighten it all down and be super efficient from a human perspective. But maybe he is being super efficient from a divine perspective, because in order to produce humans, and that is one of his goals, not his only goal with the universe, but it's certainly one of his goals. In order to produce humans, you need to make certain elements like carbon and oxygen and hydrogen and phosphorus and the various other elements that are part of our biology. Well, how do you get those? So God starts the universe in the Big Bang. Our whole universe is in a hot, dense state, and then expansion starts. But wait, as the universe expands, it begins to cool. And three elements fall out of that. Hydrogen, helium, and lithium, the three lightest elements, get formed in what's called Big Bang Nucleosynthesis, the creation of atoms after the Big Bang. But that's it. The Big Bang does not form heavier elements. It doesn't get up to carbon or oxygen, for example, which you need to have humans.
Right.
So you need something else to create those. Well, so as the universe expands and cools, stars begin to form. The hydrogen and the helium start to clump up and form stars, which get so heavy that they start burning, and by nuclear fusion. So they're so heavy, the hydrogen and helium in them are squeezing together and forming new, heavier atoms. But these new, heavier atoms are all trapped in the stars. So how do they get out? Well, to make humans. Well, eventually what happens is the stars run out of their nuclear fuel. They've compressed the elements, the hydrogen and helium in them, to the point that they've run out of the resources they need to burn with nuclear fusion. And at that point, the star isn't able to resist the forces that are affecting it, and it blows up in a nova. And that releases these elements out into the universe, where they can form planets like Earth, including Earth, and thus allow the development of us as life forms on Earth using elements like carbon and oxygen and phosphorus and things that are too heavy to have been made in the Big Bang. And consequently, in fact, a lot of the elements we have on Earth couldn't be made in an ordinary nova. Ordinary stars can get you up to iron, but beyond iron, you need a supernova. Yeah. And so, like, if you have a wedding ring on site, what is your wedding ring made out of?
Stardust.
Well, what metal is it made out of?
I don't actually know. Silver, maybe.
Silver. Okay. Well, that would be element 47, and I believe, and that's heavier than iron. So the matter in your wedding ring was made into supernova. And
how appropriate.
And we need these metals in order to have ordinary human life here on Earth.
Yeah.
So, even though you might say, well, why does the universe need to be so vast and old? So it can make the elements that we need to be here.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that God did was set up the universe so that it would operate according to certain laws, and so that it would make stars, and the stars would make the elements needed for life and planets. And so Amal had alluded to, stars seeming to explode randomly. Actually, it's not random. We can predict when approximately, we can predict when a star is going to go nova. Betelgeuse is on the chopping block right now.
Getting ready to go?
Getting ready to go, because it's running out of its nuclear fuel.
Don't say it 3 times.
Okay. But actually, even though this can look random and not as if it has a purpose from our perspective, it actually does have purposes from God's perspective. He has the joy of interacting with his creation, which reflects his greatness. He also is using aspects of his creation to bring us about so he can interact with us and show his love for us. And so there is a great purpose behind the size and the age of the universe and the deaths of stars and all those different activities.
Amal, thank you very, very much for the question. All that help you?
Yeah. Is it okay if I do a quick follow-up question?
Okay, sure.
Would that be okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kind of wondering, I know that God is infinite compared to us finite, and we have kind of like a more finite understanding of like the universe and how we manage resources and stuff comparing to God. But couldn't God just kind of create all those elements like right away?
Oh, yeah, right.
Such a long period of time.
Yeah, he could have. He could snap his fingers and create the universe in situ, as it's said, in the middle of the situation.
Right.
People have played around with that idea. But here's the thing again. It goes back to what I said about God not running out of resources. He has no need to do that because creating the universe in situ is just as easy for him as creating the universe and letting it evolve over time. And so he's not wasting energy. He has unlimited energy if he chooses to do it this way because it shows his glory and he has the joy of interacting with this for, all this longer history than just a momentary slice of history,
right?
Then that's up to God. And so, yes, he could do it another way. He could create us with all these elements ready to go right out of the box, but he doesn't need to do that. It might seem efficient from a human point of view, but that's only because we have limited resources we need to manage. God has infinite resources, and so it's just as valid for God to say, hey, I'm going to take time and have this great cosmic saga that leads up to my creation, mankind, and who knows, maybe other races.
And Amal, I really am happy you asked the question because I thought it was very pleasant to get to kind of hear it's a great story. I guess we could call it creation. You
could call it that.
It's a great story, creation.